welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. This is TJ, your host. We are discussing the origins of abuse, referencing Lundy Bancroft's wonderful book, Why Does He Do That? Inside the minds of angry and controlling blanks. The next part is a question. We've heard all this information and different symptoms to look for, different characteristics to watch out for, but the question then comes down to, when is it actually abuse? Because abuse can sneak up on you, beginning with subtle forms of control, as we just discussed, or disrespect that slowly evolves over a period of time. There are burning questions that may emerge, like, how do you know if your partner is being abusive? Is there a distinct line you can keep your eye on so that you know when it's been crossed? How much is too much? Since nobody's perfect, how do you know the difference between just a bad day when he or she is just being a jerk and a pattern that adds up to be something more serious, like an abusive person? Bancroft tells us that it's true that almost everybody does yell here or there at some point in a relationship, whether it's a boy or a girl, and they may call their partners a name from time to time. They may interrupt their partner. They may behave in a selfish way. They may act insensitive. These behaviors are hurtful, and they're worthy of criticism, but they're not all considered abuse. And they don't all have the same psychological effect that abuse has. At the same time, these behaviors are abusive when they're part of a pattern of abuse. Being yelled at by a respectful partner feels terrible, but it doesn't cause the same chilled, ugly, disgusting atmosphere that an abuser's yells do. The term abuse is about power and control. It means that a person is taking advantage of a power imbalance to exploit and or control another person. Whenever power imbalances exist, such as between you and your partner, or an adult and a child, or between a rich person and a poor person, some people will tend to take advantage of the circumstances for their own selfish purposes. The defining point of it being actually abuse is when the partner starts to exercise power over you in a way that causes harm to you and creates a privileged status for it. Next, he asks a question. Is the way he or she is treating me abuse? The lines where subtler kinds of mistreatment end and abuse begins include the following actions. Number 1, he or she retaliates against you for complaining about its behavior. This is a story I've told a million times, but let's just say your partner calls you a witch one day. You're mad, and you let it know that you deeply dislike that word, or the C word for ladies. They hate that one. Don't you dare call me a hunt. And you say, I never want to be called that again. However, this partner responds to this grievance by making a point of calling you that name even more often. Maybe it even gets a certain look in its eye, like, I got her, I got it. Because it knows it gets under your skin and presses your buttons. Similarly, you may say to your partner in an argument, would you stop yelling? I hate being yelled at. So this person then raises their voice louder and blames it on you. These are the signs of abuse. Another way the creature can retaliate against you for resisting its control is to switch into the role of a victim. Suppose you complain about being silenced by its constant interruptions during arguments. It then gets a huffy, hostile tone in its voice, as if your objections were unfair to it, and then says sarcastically to you,
All right, I'll just listen and you go ahead and talk.
And acts as if you are oppressing it by calling it out on its behavior. This is an effort to make you feel guilty for resisting its control, and it is the beginning sign of abuse. So be careful with that kind of crap. In this example, it's a man, of course, against a woman. So it says some men will ridicule the lady when she complains of being mistreated, and he'll openly laugh at her and mimic her for daring to even bring up such a thing. These behaviors remove all doubt whether or not it's an abusive person, because it is. Retaliation may not always be as clear and immediate as it is in these particular types of examples. You can tell when the partner's behavior is designed to punish you for daring to stand up to its horrifying behavior, even if it doesn't come out until a couple of days later. It doesn't believe that you have the right to defy it, and it tries to hurt you so that next time you will not. Lovely people we're talking about here. Number 2, it tells you that your objections to its mistreatment are your problem. When an abused person attempts to set limits on controlling or insensitive behavior, the evil abusive creature wants him or her to doubt this perception. So you may hear things like,
"Oh, you're just way too sensitive. Every little tiny thing bothers you. It's no big deal. Not everyone is all nice when they're angry, like you seem to want them to be. Don't start talking to me like I'm abusive just because your ex-lover or your parents abused you. You think everyone's abusing you.
I've heard that one many times.
You're just angry because you aren't getting what you want. So you're just saying I'm mistreating you because of that."
Fake. Through comments like these, the abusive monster can try to persuade you that A, you have unreasonable expectations for its behavior, and you should be willing to live with whatever it does. B, you are actually reacting to something else in your life, not what this person did. C, you are using your grievances as a power move against it. All of these tactics are forms of discrediting you and your complaints of mistreatment. That is abusive. Its discrediting maneuvers reveal a core attitude, which it never explicitly states and may not even be aware of consciously itself.
You have no right to object to how I treat you.
And you can't be in a fair and healthy relationship if you can't raise grievances. The next one, he or she gives apologies that sound insincere or angry, and it demands that you accept these apologies. Then he gives us an exchange that illustrates how this particular dynamic will play out. I'll do the different voices, which is happening to be a boy and a girl.
"I still feel like you don't understand why I was upset by what you did. You haven't even apologized."
All right, I'm sorry. There, are you happy?
"You don't get it."
What the blank do you want from me? I apologized. What, you won't be satisfied until you have your pound of flesh? What do you mean? I'm not sorry. Don't tell me what I'm feeling. Listen here, Mr. or Mrs. Fool. You're not in my head.
This interaction only serves to make the target feel worse, of course, as the evil screamer adds insult to the crazy-making, denial to whatever the partner was already upset about. The screamer feels that the lady should be grateful for the apology, even though the tone was phony. It was the opposite of the words. In fact, this creature felt entitled to forgiveness and demands it. It also considers its prerogative to insist that this abused partner accept its version of reality, no matter how retarded it is, or how it collides with everything that he or she sees and hears. In this sense, this abusive person apparently sees the partner's mind as part of what it has the right to control. Next on the list, he or she blames you for the impact of its behavior, and this is a popular one. This one is disgusting, and I give you advice when you hear these words here. If you are currently involved with the person who does this kind of thing, I wouldn't say to them, "Hey, listen to this video. This author says this." It will not help you. In fact, it'll probably make it worse, because even though it knows what it's doing is wrong, it will object to Lundy Bancroft's words, or in my own videos, I've covered this subject a million times. No one else is to blame for each adult's behavior. Simple as that. So if you're married to a man and he's promised to be faithful to you forever, but you found out he was making love to the secretary, if he tells you, oh, it's your fault because you weren't home, or it's your fault because you weren't there for me, or whatever, fake, wrong, and abusive. No one else caused this creature to go off with that secretary except him. He made the decision. He got to that line where regular people might want to do something, but they won't cross that line. Well, this creature obviously jumped over that line and did it, and then wants to blame it on you. Do not accept it. Do not even mention it. I would just get out, because all you're going to do is pull yourself into a torture chamber if you try to challenge it and say, you chose to be with that secretary. You wanted her, didn't you? No, it's just because of you. I didn't want to be with her. It's like, okay, I'm really going to believe you were making love to your secretary, but you didn't want to. But because I said this magic word, it made you, oh. Anyway, abuse counselors say of the abusive client, when it looks at itself in the morning and sees its dirty face, it sets about washing the mirror. In other words, it becomes upset and accusatory when the partner exhibits the predictable effects of chronic mistreatment, and then adds insult to injury by ridiculing for feeling hurt by it. It even uses the emotional injuries as excuses to mistreat the partner further. If the verbal assaults cause the partner to lose interest in having, you know what, sex, for example, it may snarl accusingly and say,
well, you must be with somebody else then. You must be getting it elsewhere.
And if the partner increasingly is mistrustful of it because of these mistreatments, it may tell the partner that the lack of trust is causing her or him to perceive it as an abusive person, reversing cause and effect in a mind-twisting way. Crazy making. If the partner is depressed and weepy one morning because it tore her apart the night before, it may say,
if you're going to be such a drag today, why don't you just go back to bed so I don't have to look at that crap?
If your partner criticizes or puts you down for simply being terribly affected by its mistreatment, that is abuse, and get out now. Like a client Lundy had, who drove its partner away with verbal assaults, and then told the partner that her emotional distancing was causing this abuse. This is reversing cause and effect. The evil one was kicking you when you're already down, and it knows it. Seek help for yourself quickly, as this kind of psychological assault can cause your emotional state to rapidly wither away and decline.
I am the Narcopath.
I know when we began dating, you were one of those music people, which I, quite frankly, never could stand throughout my childhood and high school years. But you were so proud of the fact that you were a drummer. And again, quite frankly, I can't stand the loud pounding sounds of the drums. But that was your thing, and I knew that you had a bank account that I could use. So I naturally pretended to be fascinated with your drums. One day I almost wore some earplugs. But the point was, I couldn't stand your drumming, and I know I watched you sitting there playing, cooking away as your drum beats, and you were so happy doing it. I knew that was going to have to be one of the tickets I used to get to you. I went along with it, but I just thought, now that I'm doing confessions, I might as well let you know I could never stand it. It's disgusting. I hate your drums. In fact, the one time you noticed one of the drum heads was split, guess who did that? Of course I would never tell you that then. I got so sick of you playing that crap, I decided to break part of it and make it look like it just happened at random. And it gave me like a day without it, but of course you quickly had another head and put it on there and replaced it. So, you wonder why it didn't work out between us. I don't have a creative bone in my body, You obviously do, and it made me sick to watch you and to hear those rhythms and beats coming out of your hands and so on. And I could never do anything like that, and I had to get out of there.
I know I told you I loved you, too. Obviously, you and I have different definitions of what the word love means. For me, love means I've got something I want, and I'm going to get it at any cost, no matter what I have to say or do, even if it's fake. That's my version of love. Yours is clearly something different. Love is the word I use to manipulate, to get things I want. And I know you picked up on it. Some of my ex-partners, it's their fault, but they would notice what they called a lack of sincerity. Like, they'd go on a date or two, and I'd tell them I was madly in love and wanted to marry them and all that, mainly because of the money they had that I snooped and found out about when they were asleep. And they questioned me about how I could be so quick. They also questioned me when I told them I'd been abused too, just like they had. Yet here I was, after date number 1 or 2, wanting to get married, and they thought I must have missed some of my lessons. That really bothered me because I didn't know what to say. Does it make sense? I mean, if I'm trying to pretend like I was an abuse victim, but then I'm rushing into a marriage with someone new, I kind of look stupid. So I had to switch gears for my future targets. Never you mind about those.
Fact is, I told you I loved you, and I meant it. Under my definition, not yours. I have conditions for my love. For example, if you don't tell me every day how sexy I am, well then I'm not going to love you. If you don't treat me wonderfully every single day in this world, I'm not going to love you. I've got strict rules. That's all I know to do with love. You all have some other idea of what love is, and quite frankly, I have no idea what it is, how it feels, or whatever.
So, I'm a 3-breasted reptilian shape shifter. What you gonna do about it?
Huh? Don't you have anything to say?
It's me, the one you fell in love with. How do you like the way I really look? This is really me.
And you were so much in love with me?
Well, honey.